Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. In the earlier session, I was discussing about the superclass, that is tetrapoda. I hope you remember about this tetrapoda. This superclass, that is tetrapoda, it comes under the group Vertebrata of the phylum Chordata. Now you remember? Chordata is the group in which the notochord is present. Then vertebrata is a subgroup in this chordata in which the notochord is replaced by the vertebral column, right? And further, these organisms, they are further subclassified, and tetrapoda is one such superclass in which the organisms are having 4 foot, or they are having the 4 limbs, and thus they are known as the tetrapoda. You know which classes will come under this tetrapoda? It is amphibians, reptilia, then your aves and the mammals. So in the last session I have explained you about the basic features of the group or the class, that is amphibia and the reptilia. Now in today's session I am going to discuss about the further classes that comes under the group tetrapoda, that is the aves and the mammalia. So let us continue. So students, here is the flowchart which is showing the basic features of the group aves, right? Aves is derived from the word aves, which means the birds. So all of the birds, they all comes under the class aves. And of course you must be familiar with these birds, so you must be knowing some of the features of these organisms, right? These organisms, they are terrestrial, right? Their habitat is of course terrestrial, and the specialty of these organisms is that they are able to fly in the sky. That means the sharing of habitat is going on in which way? Like they are going up in the sky and they are coming back on the land, and generally they are living on the trees also, right? So basically the organisms which are going or which are taking the flight in the sky, they are known as the aerial organisms. And those which are living on the trees, what they are known as, we have discussed it earlier, these are known as the arboreal, right? So here these organisms, they are basically terrestrial and they fly in the sky, and of course this height up to which they can fly, it varies accordingly. So if they are able to fly, definitely then some modifications are required in these organisms. Well, this modification is actually with respect to the limbs. These organisms, they are tetrapods, that means they are having 2 pairs of limbs. But in these organisms, the 4 limbs are modified into the wings so as to support the process of flying, right? And not only this much, the organisms, they have to come back to the land also, they have to fly over the sky also, they have to move in different regions, right? So accordingly their hind limbs are also modified. But the major modification that supports the process of flying is the modification of forelimb into the wings. Besides this, the organism is having the exoskeleton, the skin is covered with the feathers, right? And not only this much, they are also having the horny scales. But these horny scales, they are limited only in some parts of the body, and that is of course in the foot region, right? It is limited to the, I can say, hind limbs, right? So it is having the limited exoskeleton in the form of the scales, but all over the body they are having the feathers, and these feathers, they also support the process of the flying or the function of the flying in these organisms. Not only this much, the feathers, they also provide insulation to the body, they provide warmth to the body. Next is the endoskeleton. The endoskeleton is of course bony, it is made up of bones, and these organisms, they shows one more adaptation in terms of this characteristic feature. The bones are hollow in the aves, This is a peculiar feature of these organisms. You know why these bones are hollow? As they are flying up in the sky. So the body weight has to be reduced. And so as to reduce this body weight, the bones are made hollow in these organisms. Actually, they are not made over there, but of course their origin, their function or their structure is such that they are having the hollow bones. Next point is that the body temperature, it is kept constant. These organisms are warm-blooded, and these organisms, if they are warm-blooded, that means they have to be metabolically active. The metabolism should be in such a way that they can keep their body temperature constant, right? And such type of function, for such function they will require high energy, isn't it? And this is the reason that why these organisms, they are having the four-chambered heart. See, these organisms, as I said, they need a high supply of energy. So the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, it should be kept separated, right? There should be no intermixing of this blood. And thus the pure oxygenated blood can be supplied to the target body organs at a constant rate in a proper manner, right? Besides this, they are of course having the closed circulatory system, and the respiration takes place through the lungs. They are having the well developed lungs, right? Besides this, the reproduction is sexual, and and the fertilization is internal. I'm extremely sorry, it was written external here. Let me correct it out here. In these organisms, these organisms, the fertilization or the fusion of male and female gamete takes place inside the female's body. Of course, in the fallopian tube. Okay, so this type of fertilization is known as the internal fertilization, right? Further, the development is taking place through the eggs. That means they are the egg-laying animals, right? They can they can lay the egg, and the development will partially take place inside the mother's body till the shell has been developed in the surrounding, right? And then further the development will take outside the body, where the required temperature is maintained by the mother, the female mother, female bird. Okay, so they keep the temperature accordingly, and they provide the warmth to the growing organism or the growing fetus inside this egg, and thus after the particular period of incubation, the mature or the developed organism is hatched out of the eggs, right? So this is how it occurs in this particular group. I can show you now some pictures so as to represent this class. So here are some examples like pigeon, peacock, parrot, eagle, vulture, ostrich, hummingbird, and so on. You can see these pictures like this is a ice pigeon, duck, woodpecker, then the American parrot or the macaw bird, and there are many different types of birds that you must be knowing and you must have seen in the zoos, in the surroundings, and so on. These organisms or these birds, they vary accordingly, and they are showing some different features also, right? Some of the feature you can observe in terms of the structure of its beak only, then the eating habit, like some are feeding on the grains or on the seeds, isn't it? And there are some which are feeding on the molluscans, insects, right? And there are different type of eating habit is observed in different types of birds, right? So these are the basic features, examples, and related information about the group aves. One important point is there that there are some species, right? There are some of the birds which are having the wings, but over there the wings have become vestigial. Over there the wings are not used for the flying purpose. They are the flightless birds, right? And these birds, they are therefore having the well developed hind limbs that can be used for the purpose of walking on land, and for different purposes, of course. Can you think of some example? Examples are like kiwi, ostrich, penguin. See, the penguin picture is shown here in this slide, isn't it? So these are some basic information about it. Now, next group that we are going to study is the mammals. So now let me start with this group. So students, this word mammalia, it has been derived from the word mammals. And this mammals means what? The breast. Okay. So these organisms, in them, the females, they feed their young ones with the secretion of the mammary glands which are present in the breast. And this is what separating these organisms from the other group or the other organisms of the superclass, that is tetrapoda. Mammals, they are usually terrestrial in their habitat. But I'm not wrong if I will say that some of the species are also found in the aquatic region, right? Like the whales, isn't it? They are found in the water only, isn't it? So, in short, I should say that the mammals are found in different types of habitats. Usually, they are terrestrial, but some are aquatic also. So on the land, even here also, the region where they are found, it varies according to the type of organisms, right? For example, they are found in the deserts, they are found in the forest, they are found in some moist areas, and so on, right? So accordingly, the habitat varies, which can be very cold to very hot, or it can be from dry to wet conditions. Okay. Further, limbs, of course, they are tetrapods. That means they are having two pairs of limbs, and these limbs are modified according to the regions where they have to walk, where they have to run, where they have to survive. Besides this, the exoskeleton, the typical exoskeleton that we have studied in the earlier groups, right, that is absent. That means those hard plates or the scales, all those things are absent here. But the modified forms of such hard structures are present in some of the limited regions of the body. For example, like the nails, like the horns or the claws, they are present in some of the organisms in some various regions for the protection. Besides this, the skin is glandular. Skin is glandular, that means it is provided with the sebaceous glands and the sweat glands. And also it is covered with the hairs. Now these hairs, they may be present all over the body, or it may be partially covering the body. But this presence of the hair is one of the important feature of these organisms. Further, the endoskeleton is bony. That means it is made up of bones. And definitely, if it is made up of bones, then it is also having the other type of connective tissues which helps in the attachment of muscles to the bones, bones to the bones, and so on. Right? So such connective tissues which help in such type of joining, you can think of some examples like cartilage, like tendons, like ligaments, and so on. Besides this, these organisms are warm-blooded. Warm-blooded, you remember where we have studied this word? This characteristic feature is also present in the aves, right? So such organisms, they are having the capacity so as to keep their body temperature constant. And scientifically, the property is actually known as the homeothermic. Okay, that means the body temperature can be maintained at a constant rate, or it can be kept constant. Fine. Then these organisms, they always respire through the lungs. This is a very important feature of these organisms, and lungs are very well developed in the mammals. Organisms are having the closed circulatory system, and they are having the four-chambered heart. Now this four-chambered heart means what? They are having two auricles and they are having two ventricles. And this is actually thus helping in in this there is no intermixing of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, which is observed in the earlier groups, like in the case of the amphibians and in the reptilia, right? Further, in the case of aves and in the mammals, the four-chambered heart is present, which does not allow the mixing of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. These organisms, they show sexual mode of reproduction, and the fertilization is always internal. That means the fusion of male and female gametes takes place inside the female's body in the fallopian tube. Further, these organisms are viviparous. Now, viviparous means what? It means that they give birth to the young ones, right? In the earlier cases, we have studied that all other tetrapods, they all were oviparous, where the internal or the external fertilization was taking place. But here in this case, the internal fertilization occurs and the development of the organism or the development of the embryo and the fetus completely takes place inside the female body. And thus at the end of the gestation period, this female, it gives birth to the young ones. But definitely there are some exceptions also. That means they are giving birth to either weak babies, right? The young ones which are born, they are poorly developed. So even after that, the post-birth, the initial development will take place in the pouches which are present in the stomach or the abdominal region of the female body. There are the organisms which are even oviparous. And of course, that is making an exception in this particular class, that is the mammals. Now, you know why they are placed here in this group? They are oviparous, but still they are having the mammary glands, and thus they have to be placed in the class Mammalia. So now I will give you some examples of the typical mammals, and some which are showing some exception to the typical features of the class Mammalia. So here are some of the examples, like human beings, whale, apes, elephant, dog, giraffe, rats, monkeys, gorilla, gibbon, and so on. The list is of course endless. And I know you are very much familiar with all these organisms, right? The best example to quote here is the human beings, definitely. Isn't it? Then besides this, you can see these pictures here like elephants, lion, zebra, deer, and so on. Isn't it? All these organisms, they share the basic properties as we have mentioned here in the basic features, right? In the earlier slides, of course. And you can see that, or you can imagine that all these organisms, they are having the different features also. With respect to their eating habits and different physical aspects too, isn't it? So these organisms are therefore further subclassified into different subgroups. Besides these organisms, I must say that there are some exceptions also, isn't it, to this class, that is Mammalia. So now let me give you some of the examples here, which is quoting the exceptions here. The very first exception is related to the development of the organism. We said, or I said earlier, that these organisms are viviparous, right? And they show a great parental care also. They are viviparous, that means they give birth to the young ones, but here these two pictures are shown, that is the platypus and the echidna, right? These two animals, they are oviparous. They are having the mammary glands, they can feed their young ones with the mammary secretion, but they are not giving birth to the young ones. Rather, they are laying eggs. So, thus they are making an exception in this particular group. And you know, these type of features suggest that they are actually, they are the linking group between the aves and this particular group. That means these must be present during the transition phase. When the mammals, they were evolving in the period of evolution, these organisms, they must have been present over the junction or the link between the ancestors and the next group. Okay, let me show you the next exception now. Kangaroo. Now, even this organism, it is giving birth to the young one, right? But the young one which is born in this by this organism is of course very weak and is immature. So that initial or the further more development of these young ones, it occurs in the brood pouches which are present in the abdominal region of these female organisms. Right. So this is of course one very important feature which is present in such organisms. Next organism or the next exception is the whale. Whale, it is said to be a limbless mammal. It is completely aquatic, okay, and is known as a limbless whale. Further, the next organism is a flying mammal, and I hope you know it. It is a bat, in which the forelimb is modified into the wings. These wings are not exactly identical to the wings which are present in the birds. Although origin is same, so they are homologous organs. That means they are used for the same purpose. But definitely, structure-wise, they are showing such differences. And of course, these wings are present only in this particular species. So these are the exceptions in the group mammal, and is known as a flying mammal. So by such names also the questions are coming in your exams, like what are the exceptions to the group mammal, or which animal is known as a flying mammal, right? So there are different patterns by which the questions are coming, and this I'm giving you these details, right? Now at the end, let me just show you one comparison table so that you can just revise the basic things related to these tetrapods and the Pisces. So students, here is the table which is showing the comparison of all these important 5 classes according to your which are mentioned in your syllabus, that is Pisces, amphibians, reptiles, aves and mammals. All these are vertebrates, right? So now let me give you some specific points of differences or the comparison here. First is regarding habitat. Pisces, they are completely aquatic, right? Amphibians, they are leading dual life. That means they are aquatic as well as they are terrestrial. Whereas reptiles, they are mostly terrestrial, but some organisms, they are even found in the aquatic bodies. But usually these organisms are terrestrial. Further, aves are also known as the terrestrial animals, and they are especially the organisms which are even flying in the sky, right? And further, they are sharing different types of habitat as they are living on land, or they are living on the trees and so on. Fine. Mammals, again, chiefly they are terrestrial, but some exceptions are there, some differences, some variations are there. Regarding the limbs, in the case of Pisces, they are having the fins. That means the typical pentadactyl structures in the form of limbs are absent in the case of Pisces, but they are having the fins. In the case of amphibians till mammals, there are 2 pairs of limbs, right? And the front pair is known as the forelimb, and the back pair or the posterior pair is known as the hind limb. And in each case, these limbs are showing the different types of modification for different type of purpose. In the case of amphibians, as I must say that they are basically they are living in water as well as on land. So the modification is actually with respect to the swimming and walking. In the case of reptiles, they are usually creeping on the land, so the modification is supporting the function of the crawling, right? Similarly, in the case of aves, the forelimbs are modified into the wings, right? And that is for the purpose of flying. And similarly, the variations are observed in different types of mammals also, depending whether they have to live or they have to walk over the sand, or they have to run, or accordingly. Fine. Then regarding the exoskeleton, the scales and the plates, or the plates I should say, they are present in the case of group Pisces. In the amphibians, the scales are absent, but the skin is having the mucus glands, and the secretion of the mucus glands helps in keeping the skin moist. In the case of reptiles, the waterproof, dry, horny dermal plates are present. Scales or the dermal plates are present, which are embedded into the epidermis, and they are supported with the bones also. Fine. Aves are having the feathers. The body is entirely covered with the feathers. Right. In the case of foot region, they are having some horny scales. In the mammals, the body is completely it is covered with the hairs, and the skin is glandular. That means the skin is provided with the sebaceous and the sweat glands. Regarding endoskeleton, in the case of Pisces, the endoskeleton, it is either made up of only cartilage or it is made up of bones which is supported with the cartilage. In the case of other organisms, from amphibians till mammals, the endoskeleton is of course bony. That means it is made up of bones in which the osteocytes are embedded into the hard matrix. Now, regarding the body temperature, Pisces, then amphibians and reptilia, all these three groups, they are cold-blooded, whereas aves and the mammals, they are warm-blooded. Further, respiration in fishes is only through the gills. Then in the case of amphibians, they are having the gills as well as the lungs, as they are living in the water as well as on the land. And usually these organisms in the adult stage, they always respire through the lungs, whereas in the case of larval stage, they respire through the gills. Further, in the case of other higher organisms, they are always respiring through the lungs. But during the embryonic development, some gill slits are also observed. Circulatory system is closed in all these organisms, but the variation occurs with the heart. In the case of Pisces group, they are having two-chambered heart, whereas three-chambered heart is present in the case of amphibians. What is this two and three-chambered heart means? Two-chambered means they are having one auricle and one ventricle. If it is three-chambered, then the organism's heart is comprised of two auricles and one ventricle. In the case of reptiles, a three-chambered heart is present. In fact, they are having two auricles and one ventricle, and this single ventricle is showing the incomplete partition. Right, and thus there is of course the intermixing, but the separation has begun in this particular group. Exception is there, that is crocodile, which is having the complete four-chambered heart. Further, in the case of aves and the mammals, the heart is having four chambers. Four chambers, that means two auricles and the two ventricles. Reproduction in each case is sexual, but the variation occurs with respect to the fertilization and with respect to the development of the organism. So in the case of Pisces, the fertilization is always external, whereas it can be either external or internal in case of amphibians, and then further it is internal in all other three classes. Regarding development, Pisces, they are actually oviparous. In fact, I should say from the group Pisces till the birds or the aves or animals are oviparous. Now, of course, it depends whether the fertilized egg is laid down by the female or the fertilized eggs are laid. But in the case of mammals, they give birth to the young ones, and hence they are known as the viviparous. That means the development takes place inside the mother's body and they give birth to the young ones. So this is all about the comparison and the entire chapter, that is diversity. So we have discussed a lot. Now it's your turn. So study well, go through sessions and the material whatever you are having, and just try to understand the things, and just don't memorize or ratify the things. Now I will come back with a new chapter, and we'll meet then in the next session. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.